Ladies and gentlemen, it's 196th day of the Russian full-scale aggression and 9th year of the Russian-Ukrainian war. I'm Adi Shevchenko. On behalf of Mediacentre Ukraine, I would like to welcome all the journalists covering our fight for freedom. With us, we have Yuriy Ihnat, the spokesperson for the Air Force Command of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. What are the most recent news? What are the breaking news? What's happening in the Ukrainian skies? Good morning. The breaking news is always the best news that the enemy hardware we brought down. We have good news to share with you today. We have enemy helicopter that was brought down 8:13 this morning, 2 UAVs of the enemy that were shot down, and we have to thank the defenses of the land forces of Ukraine who brought down a Su-25, a fighter jet brought down in the east of our country. So compared to other developments, when we sustained missile shelling 2 days ago, this has been a quieter night. By comparison, the situation in the front remains as tense as before. The enemy frequently resorts to the use of a defense missile that many write about as 300 with 75-kilometer range that they used to deploy on the land targets. Therefore, they ruin the civilian infrastructure that they primarily target. If we consider the picture broader, what's happening in the Ukrainian sky, how has the air combat evolved? How has the situation changed in the 3 months of active hostilities? I think I lost the connection. So if you look at the broader picture of the hostility, how has the picture in the Ukrainian sky evolved? How has the strategy and tactic of the air combat changed? It has evolved significantly. The enemy has sustained heavy losses and is predominantly firing from a distance where the Ukrainian defenses cannot reach them, and they have followed this tactic for 3.5 up to 4 months when we haven't seen any piloted aviation overhead in the territory controlled by the Ukrainian forces. The enemy only erupts where the fiercest fighting is going on at the front, the Mykolaiv, Zaporizhia regions, as well as Kherson and Kharkiv. There, the enemy aviation is deployed. Often it's helicopters that are brought down daily, and also the Su-35 planes. When we read the news that a Russian helicopter was shot down or Russian jet was shot down, tell us, how does that happen? It happens when they launch an attack. So we see them on our radars. We see on our radio location systems. We see them come up on our radars. We see the moving target in a certain direction. So the decision is made to deploy the air defense equipment, and that could be the multiple rocket launchers or the air defenses, and we engage the target. All targets have their qualities like the direction, the speed it's flying at, so we identify whether that is a missile or a helicopter or a jet, and when they approach us, we engage the target. When we read that the Ukrainian aviation has launched strikes along the front line or behind the front line, how do we know what are the priorities geographically, tactically? Let me repeat the question. So when we read in the news that the Ukrainian aviation has launched strikes along the front line or behind the front line, how do we know where the aviation is deployed? The Ukrainian aviation is deployed daily at all the vectors. This is combat aviation of the Ukrainian Air Force. These are Su-35 and bombers, Su-34M, and we have the support of the helicopters of the Ukrainian-led forces. So aviation is deployed at all the vectors, and group strikes are launched. Over 2,400 such group strikes have been launched since the 24th of February. The aviation is covered up by the fighter jets. The fighter jets are carrying the American anti-rocket rockets HARM that used to destroy the Russian defenses. So aviation has a free hand and can launch strikes at different vectors. Therefore, we support the land operation to destroy the logistical center, the arms depots. We destroy the enemy hardware and manpower, and it's very difficult to operate without the aviation support. Let us also discuss the situation with the Iranian UAVs. Yesterday, you provided a comment saying that they may not be so fearsome as some purport, but you've mentioned that these UAVs can carry a load. So, how capable are those UAVs made by Iran uh, changing the situation in the front line? We try to re-establish the connection with Yuriy Ihnat, the spokesperson of the Air Force Command of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. We have more events coming up. 11:30, we talked to Vadim Pristaiko, extraordinary and plenipotentiary ambassador of UK to the UK, and we'll talk about the new government formed by Liz Truss. And at 12 o'clock, we'll talk to Oleg Korykov, who leads the state inspection for nuclear and radiation safety in Ukraine, and we'll discuss the situation at the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. We'll conclude the briefing at this. We've talked to Yuriy Ihnat, the spokesperson for the Air Force Command of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. And let's thank Yuri for talking to us.